I'm Shante. Hello, everyone, and I'm very pleased to introduce Swansea University with a project that really aligns with all three recent Collections Trust campaigns. So Banish the Backlog, Rethinking Cataloguing, and It's Good to Share. As judges, what we really loved about this project is it very clearly demonstrates how good collections management enables effective audience engagement. Really innovative project, and that innovation lies in its ambition to reach and engage with online audiences through a range of formats and languages and multiple platforms, so extending far beyond the idea of that standard online catalogue. So very pleased to introduce Dr. Ken Griffin and Sam Powell to tell you more.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and it's a great pleasure to be here today in order to talk a little bit about the Egypt Centre and the Rediscovering Egypt collaboration that we've had with Harrogate Museum as well as Abbaset Collections, which Sam will be talking a little bit about. The Harrogate Egyptian Collection is a project which started just over a year ago. In fact, in the 20th of February, just of last year, the objects arrived to Swansea as part of a loan with Harrogate Museum. So this is a collaborative project between the Egypt Centre, North Yorkshire Council, where Harrogate Museum is based, as well as Abbaset Collections, which is the company that uses or that produces the online catalogue that we use here at the Egypt Centre, which is now being branched out for the Harrogate Egyptian Collection, which you see the homepage just on your screen now. So the collection, as I said, it arrived here just over a year ago, and it was on the BBC News for the Rare Egyptian Collections artifacts coming to Swansea. There were 813 objects. And these, some of them were on display in the Royal Pump Museum in Harrogate, but only around about 30 or 40 objects out of over 800 Egyptian or so objects that arrived to Swansea at the Egypt Centre. Now, the Egypt Centre is a small university museum based at Swansea University, which houses around about 6,000 objects themselves, largely from Egypt, but also some from the ancient world, such as Greece, Rome, Cyprus, Mesopotamia. And we use the collection very much within our teaching, a lot of object-based learning at Swansea University and through the collection itself. So how did the collection arrive to Swansea? Well, it all happened around about a year and a half ago when Sam Powell, who we'll be talking with in just a little bit, visited Harrogate Museum in order to see this wooden figure, which you see on the screen. This was part of her PhD research. Sam is a volunteer, has been a volunteer at the Egypt Centre for 20 years now. But as part of her PhD research, she's re-examining the wooden figures that you see on the screen here, visiting museums throughout the UK, and has documented around about 2,000 or so of the figures. Harrogate Museum had one of them, which comes from the site of Beni Hassan in Egypt. It was during her visit when she was speaking with the curatorial staff at Harrogate when they said that very few people have come to study the Egyptological material within the stores. In fact, I think they said that around about 5 years since the last researcher that really came there to see the Egyptological collection. And so they were looking at ways in which they could perhaps make the collection more accessible to Egyptologists, scholars, but also the wider public. And Sam suggested that perhaps they collaborate with the Egypt Centre at Swansea University because of a lot of our online engagement that we've been doing with our catalogue, but also with the teaching aspect and the expertise that we have, because Harrogate Museum didn't have the Egyptological expertise to deal with these objects. So after several months of negotiations, the collection arrived to Swansea, let's say, on the 28th of February, just last year. Since the collection has been here, all the objects have been photographed from multiple angles and also put online in a new online catalogue for the first time. We've also been able to find a number of stories out about the objects which we didn't know about before. So, for example, the Shapti figure, which you see in the top left-hand side of your screen. Shaptis are basically servant figures that were placed within the tombs to do the work for the deceased in the afterlife. And this one belongs to a king called Seti I, who was the father of Ramesses the Great, one of the most well-known rulers from Egyptian history. What we only found out after this object arrived to Swansea is that it was previously in the collection of Lord Swansea, and in fact had been on display in his mantelpiece just 100 meters away from the Egypt Centre before it was sold in 1919. And it was collected by a local Harrogate man called Benjamin Kent before eventually being deposited in the Harrogate Museum in 1969. So that was an unexpected link with Swansea that we really weren't expecting. And the image that you see on the right-hand side was another really unexpected link with Swansea, because what we have here are two coffin fragments. The lower fragment is from Harrogate Museum, while the upper one is from the Egypt Centre. We had no idea that these two fragments joined together, but on a Friday afternoon, just 5 minutes before we were due to leave work, I decided to have a quick look at that, and I thought, well, the way the hieroglyphs are written look very similar to a fragment that we have in the Egypt Centre, and I took it out and they just happened to join. And very excitingly, what they provide is the name of the owner for the first time. I was always very frustrated with the upper fragment because we couldn't read the names. Now we can. And the fragment, the ostracon that you see in the lower left-hand corner, this is another object that was quite exciting. I can read hieroglyphs, but I can't read hieratic, the form of the script which is used here. So I sent it to an expert in the Netherlands, Professor Rob de Marie, who instantly replied very excitedly about this because he had seen a photograph of it before. Some Egyptian colleagues had taken a photograph of it in a museum in England, but didn't specify where. So he had been contacting a lot of museums trying to find this piece without success. Well, it turns out that this is a letter which was written around about 1200 BC by a man called Nachdamun to his brothers Kai and Baki, requesting some goose fat for their father who is ill and can't sleep very well. The letter then ends, so you assume that the goose fat has been delivered. But Rob has been able to find another ostracon in Berlin, which was written the following day, and it says, please can you send more goose fat because the cat has eaten it, i.e. the stuff that was delivered in this previous letter. So a nice little story that we can get from the objects themselves revealed for the first time. And it's not just the stories that we're keen on developing and learning more about. We are going to be putting 3 exhibitions together with the material, and the first one is called Causing Their Names to Live. This is an expression that the ancient Egyptians used because they believed that your name needed to survive in order for you to have an afterlife. So since the collection has been here, we've been able to identify over 80 names of individuals, including, for example, the one that I mentioned on the coffin earlier. Not only do we have his name, Osiris Miz, but we have the name of his mother and father. So we're giving life back again to the ancient Egyptians, which I think is very powerful and one of the key aims of the Egypt Centre collection, especially with this project. So I'm going to pass over to Sam in the next slide, but just to say that the online catalogue was launched in October 2023 with all 813 objects on there, almost 4,000 images, as well as 3D models of the objects as well. So over to you, Sam.
Thank you so much, Ken. So my name's Sam Powell. As Ken's mentioned, I've been a volunteer at the Egypt Centre for many, many years, currently doing an Egyptology PhD, and Abbasid Collections, my company, came about quite organically. I was very frustrated, as I know a lot of you know, as Gloucester have mentioned, online catalogues don't always have all the information there, everything you need. And often they've been designed by a software developer who hasn't really got that experience of what it's like to be in the trenches in a museum and really understanding how we need to access this stuff. So I was very, very fortunate to work with the Egypt Centre, and we launched the Egyptian online collection for the Egypt Centre in 2020. We had a soft early launch because of COVID. We wanted to make sure the collection was accessible, even though people couldn't come in person. And it's been such a wonderful experience, and I'm so grateful to the Egypt Centre. Ken's already told you a little bit about how I first became connected with the Harrogate collection. So luckily I was allowed to then also use Abbasid Collections for the Harrogate material as well. So hopefully this little video is going to work. So the example I'm showing here is trying to enter the word cat into an online catalogue. And if you haven't got this kind of predictive text element to it, you're going to get things like the education has cat in it, catalogue has cat in it, mummification has cat in it. You can choose the exact example you want. You then have these beautiful images all taken by Ken, which come up and you can easily find what you're looking for. You can click on the object. We have all these different fields included. When it's in blue, it means you can click on it. So I could look specifically at the sculptures, or I could look specifically at animal figurines if I wanted to drill down. And these photos move across in a beautiful carousel as well, making it really easy to see the image in good detail. I will canter through as I'm very aware of time. We also have hierarchical searches as well. So something I found particularly working with Egyptian objects, if you're interested in a specific site, such as Abydos, for example, here, I might not want to search by Egypt. I might want to search specifically by Abydos. And then this little plus here, I could then search in even more depth and choose a specific tomb if we know that tomb number. And it helps us bring together these pieces and try and piece these stories back together. So I'm trying to think when I create these catalogues of all the things different researchers might be looking for and how we can make their lives a little bit easier. As Ken touched upon, we also have these gorgeous 3D models, which I'm terrible at driving, so apologising for the bad driving in the video, but just to give you an idea, this is the beautiful Anubis head from Harrogate. We also record the object history as well, which is something that's very important, realising how these objects came into the country, trying to address some of these colonial issues we have. We can look at the auction lot, we can search by specific auctions to try and find other objects that may have arrived at the same time as well. And one of the features I absolutely adore and was something I was quite insistent we had to include no matter what, I can see Ken smirking at me, was the trails. So these work a little bit like an audio trail, but they're a little bit more flexible as well. So this is the trail we've made initially for the Harrogate loan, linking into the exhibition they have on at the moment. And it was really, really important to us to make sure this is available in a lot of other languages. I won't go through all the languages we've got on screen, but notably we have the Welsh, as we're a museum in Wales, and very importantly, Egyptian Arabic as well. We want to be able to engage with those communities where these objects came from. They have a right to be able to engage as well. So as I was saying, we can walk through the gallery with your phone, with your headphones on, and listen to an audio tour around the gallery. Or because we have these amazing 3D models and great photography, you can sit on the bus and go through these things. If you haven't got headphones, not a problem, you've got the text written in as well. So we've tried to really think around all the different ways that people might be wanting to access these things. And there's also the option to make your own trails as well. I know it's something a lot of the lecturers use very, very often to put together a group of objects for the students. You could just put together a trail because I like all the objects that are blue, and you could make a trail of that. So it gives you that extra level of engagement and chance to really connect with the objects a little bit more. So here's the link. Please do check us out. It's a really, really lovely collection to work with. The Egypt Centre have done a fabulous job getting all the information in there so quickly. I'm mind-boggled how great a job they've done on getting everything in the catalogue so quickly. It's a work in progress. Things get updated in real time. So if Ken finds another piece in the collection that matches up, we can update the collection straight away, and that event information online, which is absolutely wonderful. And I'll pass back to you, Ken, for your thank yous.
Yeah, so thank you, Sam, and just finish off by thanking everybody who has been involved in the project. As mentioned, it is very much a collaborative one. It couldn't happen without North Yorkshire Council, along with the curatorial staff at Harrogate Museum, May Catt, Karen Southworth and Nicola Baxter, as well as, of course, the volunteers who spent many weeks boxing up all the objects before they arrived to Swansea. The Ogdens of Harrogate and the Ogden family, who donated some of the objects in the 1930s, and they're still very much big supporters of Harrogate Museum. Sam, of course, and Abisek Collections, Katie Greenhalgh and Gary Lewson, who produced a number of videos documenting the collection coming to Swansea. And of course, the Egypt Centre staff, volunteers, Swansea University staff and students who have all been involved in the cataloguing process. And really, even today, we had a handling session where we used 9 objects from the Harrogate collection. So it's very much used here as a teaching aid, both in person, but also online. And the external experts such as Rob Desmarais for their help and support. And thank you again to the Collection Trust for recognising this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Sarah.